Welcome back to Moco. Today I have details, a lot of details of upcoming changes that you will be seeing soon inside of Moco. But first, can we talk about the tweet that just went out a day or two ago from Joe, community manager of Moco? He says, what's next? Next week, we're gonna have a small update with balance changes. That's what we're here talking about today, all those details. Then he says in late to early October, November, a community event featuring the unclaimed rewards from the period scheme event. And then late November, 4 creators will join us in Helsinki, Finland to test out the beta version of Neo Moco, or the new version of Moco that we should be seeing releasing in the new year. Record some gameplay content and a podcast. Guess who they are. What you guys can do is guess right now in my comment section below, what 4 creators do you think Supercell is bringing out to Finland to support Moco? But enough of all of that. Why don't we dive into the details of this update? Before we do, if you play any Supercell games, including Moco, if you use code ECHO in the shop, it directly supports my channel. So thank you guys so much for supporting me and for using code ECHO. So along with all of the details, I do have some new footage that I can share with you that I'll kind of flip back and forth between as we go. But let's start talking about monsters and XP. Reduced enemy levels in Chapter 2 Elite Open Area by 5. Approximately 28% less HP and damage. It should make you significantly more powerful in these areas. I guess people were complaining that things were just too difficult and they were getting stomped while out there in the world. They also added 20% to 50% XP gains from most monsters and NPCs, which was much needed. We want that progression to be big. Now we also have improvements to melee weapons. Let's dive into them. Basically, they want melee weapons to feel smoother and less punishing. These are aimed to give melee builds more control and uptime in close range fights. So there are 5 points right here. The first is reduced melee movement slowdown by 25%, so it's easier to reposition yourself while attacking. The second is increased attack range of Monster Slugger, Spin Sickle, and Buzzkill by 15%, which helps melee players trade less damage. You're not getting as close. You don't take as much damage. Point 3, the Monster Slugger damage is increased by 10%. Remember, the Monster Slugger was one of the stronger damage dealers in the game, and now it's been increased by another 10%. Jaded Blades, Ripped Squid Blades, time to combo reduced from 3 seconds to 2.5 seconds, and Techno Fist, which is actually my favorite in the game, damage is increased by 10%, which is huge, at least for me. Next, let's talk about tank and defense-oriented buffs. So let's give a little bit of love to those tankier builds that are very underused inside of the game. This is put in place to improve durability and frontline viability of those tankier builds. So let's get them back in the meta, boys. Toothpick and Shield. Damage reduce is increased. The reduction that it does is increased from 25% to 30%. We have Medicine Ball. The health bonus is increased from 20% to 30%, and the damage and healing is increased by 10%. Much needed, in my opinion. Spin Sickle. Dodge chances increased from 20% to 25%, which is absolutely insane. I love it. Super Loud Whistle. Cooldown reduced from 12 seconds to 8. The duration reduced from 8 seconds to 4. Healing is increased by 100%. This is better for grabbing aggro and healing quickly, but less effective for crowd control. There are 3 more, including Life Jacket. The cooldown reduced from 15 seconds down to 12, so we'll do that one and use that a little bit more often. Sheldon has a max health increase by 30%. I love Sheldon. He's just your tanky buddy out there. He's going to be 30% stronger. That's a big one. And Very Mean Pendant, damage and healing is increased by 67%, and the cooldown increased from 10 seconds to 15 seconds. Essentially, pet builds weren't scaling well in tougher, more difficult content. These changes aim to improve their survivability and their impact. Let's talk about Buzzkill to start. You know, the bees. Spawn rate is increased. 1 less attack is needed to get those buzzes. Next, pet health is also increased by 100%, shortens the time to summon bees, and increases their survivability. Buzzkill, which I absolutely love already, is even stronger. And by the way, you can see the controls now being able to be adjusted. I absolutely love that. We have Wolf Stick. Wolf health is increased by 15%. Weapon and pet damage is increased by 10%. We have pet damage rings, major and minor, bonuses increased by 10%, and pet health rings, major and minor, bonuses increased by 20%. Now be honest, guys, what do you think so far? We're about halfway through. Are you happy so far with the changes? Keep in mind, this is not the big grand change that we're getting at the new year. This is more balanced changes to make the time over the next few months a little bit more enjoyable for all of us. And check this out, underused weapon buffs. I love this. They're looking in the game, seeing what players aren't using, and they're buffing those weapons to bring them back into the meta. This is something we should see happening more often in more games. So we have a bunch of these that are getting the buffs right here. Let's take a look first of all with the poison bow. Damage is increased by 21%. The horn bow, damage is increased by 14%. CPU bomb, which I actually love, is damage is increased by 14%. Explosive six pack, damage is increased by 30%. Smelly socks, why did they and how did they get so smelly? Damage is increased by 10%. Cactus charm, damage is increased by 10%. Boombox, cooldown reduced from 12 seconds to 10 seconds, which I like, a classic OG weapon right there. We have gadget battery, damage is increased by 30%, and singularity, cooldown reduction per combo increased 1.5 seconds to 2.25. Damage increased by 10%, lowers burst slightly, but improves long-term uptime. Next, we have utility gear and survivability, ring improvements, and elite module tweaks. So let's start out with the utility gear first. Pocket airbag, cooldowns reduced from 10 seconds to 5, and max damage blocked is increased by 25%. This should trigger more often and feel more reliable in high damage situations. For the ring improvements, minor rings, damage and healing is increased by 10%. Executioner rings, major and minor, damage bonus is increased by 33%. And then elite module tweaks, speeds, kill, elite module, effects are increased by 30%, and the healing ride elite module effects are increased by 30%. Now keep in mind, elite modules, who knows what's going to happen to them when we do get the new version of the game in the new year. Not sure, they may be completely wiped, and that's okay because I welcome a new, bigger, better, more expandable moco for the future. Now, what do you say we get into some of the new features and improvements, some of which you may have seen sneak peeked throughout this video in the footage that you were watching. There are 12 new features. Let's dive in and check them out. They added animated 3D boss portraits to Rift and Dojo thumbnails and launch screens, so things look a little cooler. Doesn't affect gameplay. Interacting with apartment radio now opens a new menu to view and control music. You can shuffle or loop the tracks. So this is really cool. They basically have their own DJ, and did you know they're on Spotify? I'm literally listening to them on Spotify right now, and that's the music you hear in the background. So all the moco music is available on Spotify as well as in-game through the radio. Controller scaling and positioning added, accessible from the settings and cool zone. So like we mentioned before, you could actually change how big and the spacing of all of your controls in the game. I personally don't need it, but many people may. And it's actually great for handicapped people as well, so they can fine-tune things to be perfect for them. They added 2 new options to the style tab in the wardrobe, randomize and shuffle. Randomize generates a new look from all your unlocked skins whenever you return to the apartment. Shuffle rotates between your save styles and selects a new one whenever you return to the apartment. And honestly, I think that's really cool. They also added public teams. You can now make your team public and it'll automatically appear in the public team section of the other players' maps screens. It's going to allow you to get more players into your battles with you. Opening the team up for friends view from the portal will filter players and teams based on the selected location. We have enabled world chat in all open worlds. World chat, huh? Bringing me back to those days of Clash of Clans. We'll see how that goes. We have player profiles now show Supercell ID button when expecting others, which is cool. I like how they just implement Supercell ID just nice and smooth throughout all of it. Communities are now shareable, sweet. Friends and chat group members now show time since last online, which is great to see when our friends are slacking. Updated visuals for the news menu and added sound effects to player gestures and to dances. And lastly, the bug fixes.